Oh.
Slavery for 400 years. For 400 years, that sounds like a choice.
Oh. Ooh.
I see good things about Hitler also.
So, YEEZY in 2023, what do we do with this thing? Because, listen, I don't think I need to go over you everything that Kanye West has done in the past year or so, but he has said some heinous things, done some heinous things, and he is rightfully canceled for all intents and purposes. But where does that leave YEEZY? Or more specifically, YZY SZN, the clothing lines that he did collection after collection? Because I think anyone who says YEEZY clothing was bad is lying to themselves and to the world. If you look all the way from YEEZY Season 1 to the final season, from beginning to end, Kanye West was hiring incredible collaborators to make really nice clothing. It was, I don't know, kind of dark, avant-garde, but done in a much more accessible way. I think he's very similar to someone like a Matthew M. Williams, who is doing luxury clothing and taking these styles that are maybe unapproachable, like Asian streetwear, Japanese, Korean, etc. Rick Owens, of course, heavy influence there, but making it palatable to a wider American and European audience. This is easily the hardest video I have ever made, and for that reason there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about here that doesn't fit into the usual low luxury, like, oh, here are the clothes, let's look at them and talk about them type of deal. So I'm going to be interjecting here at various times to just go a little deeper into the more philosophical ideas surrounding this concept. And I think the first thing I want to say is that the core of this video was filmed quite a long time before all of the recent geopolitical stuff that has been happening, so it's disconnected from that, but also kind of makes this more important than ever because fuck Ye and everything that he said and did that caused his kind of fall from grace. But I still think there's really interesting stuff to explore here. But that makes things really, really hard because I have no interest whatsoever in promoting Kanye West or Ye. I don't even think I need to respect him enough to call him Ye. I'm going to call him Kanye West because that's what I know him as. But I can't support that guy. Why would you? But YEEZY, the clothing brand, and the designers that worked for it did amazing work. And that's what you have to remember, is that YEEZY was much, much bigger than Kanye West, and I think it transcended him. Even from the very beginning, he had incredible collaborators. You know, Demna Gvasalia was in his crew long before Kanye West teamed up with him and Balenciaga for their collaboration with Gap. Of course, everyone knows how important Virgil Abloh was to Kanye West design and vice versa. Jerry Lorenzo from Fear of God was there. Salehe Bembury was doing footwear. Even Shane Oliver from Hood by Air, someone I respect immensely, was involved in YEEZY Season. So that brings us back to the central question: how do we view YEEZY clothing in light of Ye's actions? And I think my argument is that you have to separate them. It does take some of the mystique out of the thing because Ye's personality was such a driving force behind the entire endeavor, but even when you separate him, the clothes still stand up. So today what we're doing is we're going to do that. We're going to separate Kanye from the clothing, and we're going to look at it as clothing with this insane leather shearling zip-up hoodie. One of my favorite pieces that YEEZY SZN ever produced. It's from season 3, which I think was the epitome of YEEZY. That was the iconic Life of Pablo Madison Square Garden show where they were passing the aux cord around. Just iconic stuff will go down in music and fashion history. So that's just a moment in and of itself. And the clothing that he showed there, while it maybe wasn't the buzziest part, there was a lot that happened at that show, it still holds up. It's still so good. So this is very important. I want to first point out here that I am specifically talking about YEEZY at resale on Grailed or wherever, because the important thing about that is that when you buy a resale, none of that money is going to Ye himself to promote his harmful ideologies, right? So that has a different moral weight to it, because so they're doing these new YEEZY drops and stuff like that from Adidas, and he does get a cut of those. So I'm not in the business of telling anybody what to do, but for me personally, if you're buying new YEEZY stuff, if he ever does a future YEEZY clothing drop, or like Ye 24 or whatever he's doing, for me personally, I would say that doing those that do financially contribute to him is immoral in a way. Kanye West, screw him, we're leaving him behind, and we are going to appreciate this incredible clothing that the people he hired put together. Screw Kanye, let's look at the clothes. All right, there it is. I have to zoom out like crazy to see this entire thing. Holy crap. So this is a leather jacket, shearling lined, which you can see in some areas, kind of like an aviator style. I think if you look at this, you can see that it is quite indebted to the work of Rick Owens. Like, that's undeniable. Pieces like this Rick Owens scuba leather jacket that I have are a clear reference point, but the designers of YEEZY took some liberties and made some changes that really makes it their own and makes it stand out. First of all, I think if this were Rick, it would be a much more like fitted, skinny, and long piece. Whereas this, I don't know how much it shows on camera, but it's a much more rounded fit. Something that obviously the YEEZY team would go on to refine with the round jacket that they did for Gap. One thing that I think is somewhat important to consider here is that you don't really want to make people uncomfortable with your clothing. You want to do whatever makes you feel good, but you also don't necessarily want to make others feel bad in the process. Like, I'm a white dude. If I'm out wearing YEEZY, I don't want someone else to see that, like a person of color, and think that I dislike them or don't support them, or even worse, actively want to harm them. That would be awful. That's not what I ever want to do. But at the same time, is that what people think? I don't know, you tell me. Like, when I'm out and I see somebody wearing a pair of like YEEZY 350s or whatever, I don't personally assume that they have like hate in their heart because of that. What I do assume though is probably that they're either, I don't know, politically disconnected, like they just don't think about those things, or that they just had them sitting in their closet and they were like, why would I get rid of these? I already bought them. You know what I mean? And both of those, I don't know, connote a sort of lack of care or introspection, which I don't personally necessarily want to give off. I don't know. It's interesting, and I don't know exactly what to do about that. But I think we've got to interrogate this more, figure out what makes this piece tick. So let's look at the tags here. So if we look inside, the neck tag is very simple. It simply says Season 3. Clearly they didn't think they needed to say YEEZY. They thought Season 3 would stand on its own. I think that'll fade over time, but I think it makes it a bit more esoteric and interesting for archivists. It is tagged as size small. We will talk much more about sizing later. And it was made in Turkey, which was an interesting choice. Some YEEZY stuff, some of the higher end stuff, was made in Italy at points, and at other times it was produced by Adidas, usually in China and countries like that. But I feel like Turkey is kind of a middle ground. It's where a lot of like premium brands make their stuff. I'm thinking, you know, like Hugo Boss and All Saints and Rag & Bone and things like that, whereas the luxury brands that are going to look to countries like Italy. So I feel like that was probably a tactic to make this a bit more affordable while still keeping a slightly higher level type of craftsmanship to it. But let's move down and look at the care tags. So opening this up, we've got two tags here. The first one outlines that this is real fur, 100% shearling, fur product name lamb, scientific name Ovis aries. The country of origin is Turkey, so even the materials are from Turkey. It wasn't just made there. It is treated by being dyed. And interestingly, down at the bottom, distributed by West Brand Fashion LLC. I have to assume that this is a little bit of an FU to Adidas. Like, look at me, I can source and manufacture my own stuff. It's West Brand Fashion. Interesting, right? And this tag is your more typical care tag at the top. It says season 3, then made in Turkey. And we can see our fabrication is 100% lamb leather. Very high-end stuff. You've got lots of washing symbols, and then again, West brands down at the bottom. On the back, we've got more of that fabrication information and just a lot of writing in various ways. So interesting tags, and I think the most important thing to take away from this is that it is lamb leather, real shearling fur, and that it is made in Turkey by the West brand, YEEZY itself, as opposed to Adidas. And I think that was important to me. I didn't want like a cheap Adidas made in China piece. I wanted some of that higher end YEEZY stuff, because if there's one thing that the brand was really good at, it was material science. They really seem to care about materials, and that holds up here. I think some people would say, why are you promoting YEEZY? Out of all the near infinite amount of brands you could choose, why YEEZY? And I think my answer to that is that I don't think I'm promoting here, or at least I'm not trying to. I'm really trying to say that Kanye West was a hugely successful product designer, and because of that, there is tons of YEEZY clothing and tons of YEEZY shoes out in the world, and I'm trying to figure out, what do we do with those? What can we do with those? What is the acceptable outcome for all of that product that exists? And now we can look at the details, and let's start here on the outside. I'm so excited to dive into this. And we can start by talking about the leather here, because I think they've gone with a really unique treatment here. It is very natural. You can see all of like the different sections here. It has a slightly rougher feel than what you'd usually see from like a leather jacket. And that's because I think it's very natural. They haven't coated it in a ton of pigment, a ton of like plasticky patent stuff. It's a very natural type of dye treatment for this leather, and it gives it a very unique, almost like dried out, scaly look, which I really appreciate. The cut is incredibly interesting. It's simple, like I said, rounded off, but there are a lot of discrete panels and little stitch details here that I'd love to look at here. So you can see it's slightly high in the neck, kind of going for that scuba fit that Rick Owens had in that jacket we looked at. And you can see it's got these really interesting, kind of harsh angled cutoffs here. I think that's another very Rick feeling thing, if I'm being honest. But it's kind of futuristic. It's got that cyberpunk, almost off-world element that YEEZY really dove into in some of the later seasons. It's a slightly dropped shoulder here. You can see where it hits with that seam. And then you get the arm with another discrete panel here. That's very typical of like an aviator jacket. And then they curve out this shearling at the cuff, which we'll talk more about in a bit. You get two big deep pockets. They're top facing, so they go right in. I love the placement of those. And the lining is actually really nice and soft. It's kind of like fleecy in a way. Down at the bottom, you've got this little detail at the hem, and then you can see we've also got some drawstrings here at the waist. And these are rubberized off at the ends. That's something that Virgil did a lot at Off-White. And you've also got drawstrings at the hood here with the same treatment. It's a real chunky silver tone metal zipper. It's two zippers, so one at the bottom, one at the top here, so you could kind of mix and match where that zip lands, which I love. And it is a Talon zipper, something that I don't see all that often, but I've always been impressed with their zippers, so I think that's a good choice here. Then we get to the hood itself, which again, like the cuffs, has that shearling kind of poking out and curling around the edges. So now I think it's arrived at that time to talk about the shearling. It is a very natural feel. It feels like a pill carpet or something in a lot of ways. It's a deep, dark black dyed, even darker than the dye on the leather, which I think provides a nice monochrome contrast. So it kind of, you've got, what's that, a couple inches right there at the hood, and then quite a bit more, maybe an extra inch on the cuff. So big kind of puffy aviator bomber cuffs here with the shearling. I think someone could also ask, why are you making this video? And I think that's a fair question. There's a long history of right-wing reactionaries saying really awful stuff and then being like, oh, I'm just asking questions, bro. You know, I'm just bringing it up. I'm just playing devil's advocate. And that gives them cover for some really harmful stuff. And I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to put it out there. So I hope I am doing this for the right reasons. I'm doing this because I really hate Ye's politics, but I also respect the work that was done by the other designers within YEEZY. And by making this video, I am in no way trying to make Ye or his views more palatable to anyone. And now looking at the back, I think here's where you start to see that rounded fit much more. Things have been kept fairly simple here. If we turn up the hood, you've got a seam going right over the top, rounding around there, and then one seam that goes all the way down the back, one that goes across maybe a third, a quarter, or a third of the way up the back, and you get this same kind of U detailing at the back of the neck as well. So that's the outside, but what's going on the inside? So like I said, it's a high neck. If we start to unzip that, you can see that shearling takes up the entire thing. It is fully lined, very thick, very nice. This is a lot of shearling. Just materials cost on this was probably insane. And you can see here's one of those front pockets, very sizable pocket. There's the lining there, almost like a glossy poly lining to that. And here's that other pocket, but you also get where the tags are. And that pocket is what the tags were inside. So double pockets here, love to see it. You do get a nice little leather hang tag here as well, although I'm really not sure if it would hold the weight. This thing, there's no way for me to really explain it, but it is just absurdly heavy. Please take my word for it. The weight on this is insane. So I am really, really impressed by this piece. This is on the level of high luxury stuff outside of the country of origin. Again, high luxury brand, you'd probably be seeing a piece from Italy or something similar like that. But even a piece like this made in Turkey for the prices you can find them at, it's really next level stuff, and I'm impressed. All right, I've made it to my final destination, the park here. It's very New England. Oh, look at that view. So in the end here, in a way, I am making some types of arguments for cultural preservation, which I know is historically a really fraught thing to do, and I recognize that. But at the same time, the culture that I'm making the argument for potentially preserving, there's some loud cars and buses, I'm sorry. The culture that I'm arguing for potentially preserving is one that was spearheaded by a very harmful black man, but who hired a lot of really important and really positive people of color to work with him, from, Shane Oliver to Jerry Lorenzo, Tremaine Emory, Virgil, of course. It just goes on and on. So is that worth preserving? I don't know. I think that's up to you. All right, what a piece this is. Now that we've checked out all of those details, it is time to try this hoodie, jacket, shearling, leather thing on, but we're gonna need some other pieces. One piece is not enough for a fit, so let's see what else we're wearing here. So I think to go with this, we need 3 pieces. We need pants, a shirt to go under, and we need shoes. This is really our statement piece, so the rest just needs to fill it out. And I feel like the era when this was released, it was really about big jackets and skinny pants. So I'm gonna hold true to that, and we're gonna use the Andemülemeister scab jeans. I think these things will pair really well. They have that nice, long, skinny fit, and that treatment is just insane. For the undershirt, we're gonna do something a little different. We're not gonna do a luxury brand. Instead, we're gonna do this official Bully Larry Clark t-shirt in white. And this is from the Damn company, a company that Larry Clark, I believe, is officially affiliated with. This is a sick shirt, sick movie, kind of like a cult piece, so I think that'll go really well. And finally, for the shoes, we're gonna go with a pair of sneakers. We have the Balenciaga Tyrex sneakers. I think that biker look is gonna go very well with the jacket and pants that we've chosen, and I just think it's fitting. Balenciaga is a brand that YEEZY famously became entangled with in many ways, so I think these shoes will fill it out really, really well. All right, let's see what happens. All right, let's start off here by putting on the Andemülemeister pants. The only thing to keep in mind with these is to put them on slowly, or else you are liable to rip your pants a new one, quite literally. But once they're on, they look good, feel good. So let's move on to that Bully t-shirt by the Damn Company. Throw it on. It's kind of a relaxed, oversized fit. Nice, thick cotton. Feels good. I like the look of this. I like the feel of it. And next up, the Balenciaga Tyrex sneakers. I just love the like alien cyberpunk vibe to these. They were never Balenciaga's most popular, but I've always really enjoyed them. Now it's time for the Mac Daddy, the pièce de résistance, the YEEZY shearling leather jacket hoodie thing, and throwing it on. I am really liking this fit. Holy hell. But before we finish, I didn't even mention this. We gotta take one more step here and throw on the Enfant Riche des Primes Jacques-Marie Mage sunglasses, the Sidewalk Doctor sunglasses. These are a workhorse to me. I wear them all the time. But now that we have all the pieces on, we can look at this fit in full, and I am obsessed. I would wear this out any single day of the week, as long as that day of the week is quite cold, because this jacket, like I said, it is heavy and it is warm. First of all, it is that real lamb's wool, like shearling fur, and that is very thick, very heavy, very warm. Also, because it's real shearling, it does have a little bit of a thickness and scratchiness to it that may rub some people the wrong way, no pun intended. Obviously, like a cheaper acrylic or something faux shearling would have this softness to it, but it would not have the warmth, and it would not have the organic nature that YEEZY clothing was always such a fan of. So this is a heavy, thick jacket, but it does move with you well, although it kind of, interestingly, really sticks in its place. It finds where it wants to sit, and that's where it goes. Like you can see when it's left open, the zip is undone, the kind of lapels up towards the hood, they naturally curve outward and show that shearling, which I really like. The way that that lands is next level, and I think that has to be due to the choices of how they've constructed this, and it's really smart because the way it falls is just perfect and just looks right. It is a massively, massively oversized fit. As we saw, this is tagged a size small. Really, if you were probably to measure the pit to pit and shoulder to shoulder and all that stuff, it's probably more like an extra large, but that's just classic YEEZY. That's how they did things. It's definitely what was right for its era and is even continued through to, you know, the Balenciagas of the world and things like that. So I think the fit makes sense and it still holds up to this day. So in the end, what do I think of all this? Well, I think I got this at a great price, a cut rate price, in part thanks to Kanye West, but also not thanks, like screw that. I would much rather have this be expensive and have him not exist and saying and doing the things he's doing, but that is life, you know. But I also think we can leave him behind. I think we can separate Kanye West from YEEZY, and I think we can appreciate the clothing for what it is. I think Kanye, he was kind of leading this orchestra in an absentee dad kind of way. I think it was his aesthetic and his taste that kind of gave things the look and feel that they did. But for all intents and purposes, we've got every indication that he did not make the clothing. He was not designing the clothing. You know, he had a real knack for hiring incredibly talented up-and-coming designers, and he did a great job in throwing them together and letting them do their thing within his taste levels. So I think we can appreciate YEEZY clothing as an appreciation of those designers, those people that were worked to the bone and kind of had their creativity sucked out of them to drive this Kanye West machine that he had built up around him. So once again, finally, screw Kanye West, but secret hooray for YEEZY. Like, this stuff is honestly great, and I think it deserves to be appreciated despite what its proprietor has said and done. Jeez, what an asshole. Holy hell, I love this jacket. Oh my god, it's so good. Thank you so much for watching. Take a look at the other video on screen here, subscribe to my channel, like this video, and I'll see you next time.